Hey y'all, it's me. It's your girl, the glow up is y'all, and I'm just so excited to be here to be able to be with y'all again tonight. Listen, this week went by so quick. After a while, it's gonna be Thanksgiving. I'm already excited about all of the different foods and stuff that I'm excited to be eating. Listen, I am gonna be cooking. I ain't gonna even say I'm not even gonna sit up there and hold you. I am gonna be cooking a little bit. Your girl gonna be cooking a little bit this year. So I'm excited about that, right? But I'm excited because I get to be around family, especially those who really love me, right? And that's exactly who I'm choosing to be around. That's a real thing for me. But, anyways, I hope and pray that each and every single one of you are having a happy, happy Friday. We're in this love series. And we're definitely going to be in this love series because I'm thinking that we all need it, right? And I think that I need it too, right? I think that relationships, love, all of it serves a purpose. And I think that at the end of the day, like in order for us to truly grow, right? We have to touch on these things. We have to touch on relationship with God. We have to touch on relationship with self, and we have to touch on relationship with others, right? Because it is so important for us to be able to have relationship. But then also, what does God's word say about that? What does God say about relationships with Him? What does He say about relationships with yourself? What does He say about relationships with others, right? Because this is the thing, right? At the end of the day, love is the true foundation of who we are. And without love, there is no way for us to be able to truly glow at the end of the day. There would be no glow, there would be no growing if we can't actually receive the foundation of what and who we are, which is love, which is God. And so these past 2 weeks, y'all know that we've been talking about it, right? We've been talking about love yourself, right? And love God. We've been talking about love God, love yourself, and love others. And so we kind of talked about that with the two greatest commandments, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. So if you hadn't seen that, definitely make sure that you go back, not last week, but the week before, and listen to that podcast, listen to that episode. And then last week, we talked about what love is and the definition of what it is. And we were coming out of First Corinthians 13, focusing on verse 4, right? Starting at verse 4. And we go right on down to know what love is, right? And so today I kind of wanted to just talk about that and to re-emphasize that. And then we're going to start talking about relationships and the roles of men, women, right? And at the end of the day, like this is what God has called us to do. And I think sometimes as a people, we get so caught up in the things that we feel like we should do, right? Versus our purpose. We get purpose confused with responsibilities. And responsibilities are a part of our roles. Again, I say that because purpose is the overall mission, which is to love God and love others. That is our mission as believers. I don't know whether or not if you are a believer or not. If you're not looking at this, then maybe you're trying to figure out whether or not if you want to be a believer or not. All you got to do with that is believe in your heart and confess with your mouth, and you are saved. That is all. That is it, right? You do not have to be in a physical church in order for you to accept Jesus and for Him to meet you exactly where you're at. Listen, I'm gonna tell you what, because at the end of the day, listen, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, I don't know how much um where I would be. Okay, I don't know where I would be. And this is a real thing for me. But anyway, so let's get into it, y'all, because this is what we do, right? This is what we do at the Glow Up Is, honey. We grow to glow. That means that we take the mask off. We're not ashamed. We are actually seeking and intentionally trying to grow to be the best version of ourselves that God sees. We want to be who God sees, right? We want that light to really shine. We want His light to shine. We want that glow. We want that true, true glow. And I don't know about y'all, but listen, your girl is out here trying to glow. You see what I'm saying? Listen, I'm a little half crazy sometimes. Yep, and is, right? I think we all are to a certain extent, but at the same time, right, God has a way of reeling me in and constantly reminding me and even putting people in my path, right? Um, to be able to affirm, what it is that He says and what I know that He knows about me and what He says about me. And so kind of piggybacking off of that, right? If we go back into Corinthians um, 13 and we go into verse 4 and we talk about what love is, love being patient, love is kind, and we learn all these different character traits of who God is, right? Because that was our mission last week, was to know who God is. But we also want to make sure that we are resonating that with ourselves. We want to make sure that we're taking the context, right, and we're applying it to ourselves. This is how we exactly improve. This is how we become the best versions of ourselves, because we're not just reading it, right, just to read it to get fat on His word, but we're also beginning to seek it out and then to apply it. Applying it sometimes, right, can be very hard, can be very tough, but I'm excited about it because I really truly believe that God wants us to talk about every single one of these characteristics. And I think that it's so dope because at the end of the day, right, we will thank ourselves for it because God says that we will reap a harvest. We will reap a harvest if we sow this thing. So are we sowing love, right? Are we sowing patience? Are we sowing, right, the records of no wrongdoing, right? Are we not keeping records of wrongdoing, or are we throwing it in our friends' faces? So today we kind of want to talk about that, reiterate that, but we also want to talk about the beginning foundation, right, of meeting people and our purpose people and our purpose partner. We'll start to talk about purpose partner next week, but I kind of wanted to talk about purpose people because God will literally give you people. Okay, we literally have to decide, right, who we want to be around us. You are the CEO of you. There is nobody that can make you become friends with them. There's nobody that can literally make you do anything without your yes. There is nothing, not even God. Like you have to literally choose God. You literally have to give God your yes in order for things to happen. Yes, God is all knowing. And people always say, well, God already knows. God already knows what's going to happen. So how do we really get to do this? How do we, it's almost like manipulation. And it's not. The truth of the matter is, right, is that we don't know what we're going to do, right? God does, but we don't. We don't even know if we're going to make it to see tomorrow. Okay. But God does. God knows whether or not we're going to be here tomorrow. He knows whether or not we're going to be here 50 years from now. But we have to be present in the present. And that's why it's so important for us to love ourselves on today and to be able to love on people and to be able to identify truly what love is. So then that way, what happens is that when we choose these purpose people, to allow ourselves to connect to these people, because even in the end of the day, right, not everybody is for you. And we will learn that, right? And as you get older, too, because that's what the glow up is about, right, is we're growing spiritually, we're growing emotionally, we're growing mentally, right, we're growing in all different aspects. Physically, we're growing, right? Even if you never decided that you wanted to grow emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, you're still growing physically, because at the end of the day, even though you may not feel like that, you're still aging. Your bones are. I promise you, even if you don't look it, your body begins to feel it, right? Because your body begins to go through all of these different things. And that's exactly the way that God wants us to also, right? To be able to grow in relationships, right? And to be intentional with our yes, right? To be able to give our love. And so a lot of us, right, we talk about relationships with ourselves. And again, we talk about relationships with others. And the truth of the matter is, right, we talked about God being that foundation of what love is. And then we also went over the characteristics of what love is. And so I kind of wanted to go back into that a little bit more and dig a little bit deeper into relationships, because we got to be mindful, right, of our purpose people. Okay. And a lot of times what happens is that we look at people and we see what we like. Hello. I don't know about y'all, but listen, I'm tired. I am just really sick and tired, right, of identifying with people in brokenness. And so what I decided to do was do a whole cleanse, okay? And be mindful and take inventory of my friends, okay? Who I was calling friends, who check up on me, who don't check up on me. How do I feel about these people, right? But then I also wanted to get out of my emotions, right? And literally look at them for who they are, right? And so sometimes, right, we can give compassion. And then sometimes we're not giving compassion because we are not looking at it from a good view. We're not looking from it from God's view. We're looking at it from a distorted view. And I think sometimes, right, we expect our friends to be there for us no matter what. And we expect for our friends to be our therapists. We expect our friends to just pick up when we need them. We expect for them. Listen, because I was there. I was literally there maybe a few months ago, because I only have a certain amount of people in my circle, right? And so because I only have a certain amount of people in my circle, I was expecting them to love me the way that I needed to be loved. And then at the same time, what I had to understand is that some people don't love the same way that you love. They love you, but their way and their reception of what love is and their perception of what love is, right, is different. And not necessarily because, right, of different upbringings and everything, right, because that is different upbringings and different things like that. But what the foundation has to be is God. right? So if they're not even connected to God and they just know of God, I'm not even trying to connect myself to these people. You get what I'm saying? Because the truth of the matter is, right, is that we're on two different levels. We're on different levels, right? I don't mind having you again on my outer circle, right? And being an example and a living light amongst you, right? But what I do not want to do also, even in my circle, I don't want to cause my brother or my sister to stumble. Because the truth of the matter is, right, is that I have to learn how to continue to be patient, have to be understanding, have to make sure that I'm not keeping records of wrongdoing, but I'm also trying to make sure too that I'm not putting too much on them where they're no good for themselves. Okay. Because again, love is not self seeking, right? And it also has some type of discipline that's there. And that's why it's so needed. And it's such a must, right? And so I'm very intentional with who I call friend. um, and I'm very I can be a bit much sometimes, right? And I know that, and I know my friends know that, the few that I do have, they know that, right? And so I'm thankful for that. But I know too that they don't just know of God. I have friends that can actually pray for me. And so your friends matter. Your purpose people, they matter. And a lot of times too, even when we begin to talk about purpose people, okay, that come into your life, because the truth of the matter is, we have to make sure that we're making the right choices. We have to make sure that we are um, allowing God to fulfill what it is that He needs to fulfill versus what we fulfill. We cannot be choosing people and identifying with people because of hurts and trauma, right? And I say this because sometimes what happens is that we do find ourselves connecting, right, over trauma, grief, whether or not if it's something that maybe it's a show, maybe it's something like that, right? And maybe you've outgrown that show, or maybe you've outgrown some of the behaviors and the habits. And what happens is that sometimes in those lives, like in our lives, right, instead of those people growing, right? And this is the thing too, is that we also have to be understanding and mindful that everybody grows at different paces. But what I will not tolerate is that no one wants to grow, no one wants to take accountability, right? Because that's a true thing, right? Is that I don't want to continue to be around somebody though who's not going to be able to take accountability for that action. And that's one thing that I can say about my friends, right? Is that they do take accountability, and so do I. You know what I'm saying? It don't feel good. You know what I'm saying? I don't like it. It don't feel good sometimes to take accountability. I'm just like, well, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I could have approached that differently, right? But not everybody understands my cuckoo. Not everybody does. I'm just thankful for the few who do or even try and attempt to, right? Because I think that that's a real true friendship, is that when you have somebody who's literally trying to match your energy or wants to try to understand why you do some of the things that you do. And then sometimes it's not meant for people to understand in that season, right? But I do truly believe that God allows us to come across the people that we're supposed to come across, but we still have to be mindful of choosing, because if we choose out of trauma, we choose out of flesh, we choose out of emotions, okay, it can really mess us up, and it can really have our growth at a pace of not growing, right? It can be stagnant, it can literally become stale. And we're not getting anywhere. And then we're not understanding why purpose is not being fulfilled. Like, I literally have people who push me, right? But I also realized too that I push people, and I don't think that I realized that I was doing that, right? I don't even realize. I don't think that sometimes I don't realize how people are literally motivated by some of the things that I do or say. Right. I'm learning too that my word is my bond as well. Right. I've always stood on anything that I've said because that's just who I am. But I expect other people to be the same way. But what I'm learning in this life, man, in this thing called life, is that I don't have to have those same expectations from everybody else, because you know why? Again, we all grow up differently, right? And let's be real with ourselves, right? There's a lot of dysfunctional stuff that we've seen, right? Or things that we've been exposed to, whether or not it was on TV, whether or not it was in the household, whether or not if it was just people around us, right? Like, there is always something, okay, that has either distracted us, affected us in type of ways, right? And so in some ways we do have to make sure that in those moments when we are choosing our purpose people, that again, we're not choosing them based on similar backgrounds of the way that a person was brought up, right? Because at the end of the day, this person may not have been raised the way that you were raised, but they found their way to Jesus. And because they found their way to Jesus and they are a believer, right? You can connect yourself with that person because the truth of the matter is, right, is that they may be able to help teach you some things in some areas that you may not have even been exposed to yet, right? And I think that that's a dope thing too, right? Because you have to be receptive, you have to be open minded, you have to keep yourself being mindful of all the different things that it is that is going to be coming your way because you just don't know in that spur of the moment how things are going to go. You just don't know. But I'm just so thankful. And I'm constantly reminded that everything works together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And so, what I'm not going to do is grow weary. I'm just not going to grow weary. And it was just something about, the love, right, that I think about in God and who he is, right, as just being the Father, the Alpha, the Omega, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. I'm just amazed by his unfailing, his unwavering love for us and how he loves us, right? And how a person can even obtain that love from God and to be able to give that to someone, right? In human flesh. Like, Lan, listen, I'll tell you one thing that I can say, and I just know that Aletha Cox Jones, she understood me in ways that I never understood my own self. And I just think that's so dope when you actually have a person who comes in your life, okay, who becomes your best friend. And I'm just so thankful that God allowed me to be able to experience that on this earth. Like when you get to meet genuine people, okay, not only just genuine people who have no motives, right, but a person that will keep all of your secrets, a person who doesn't judge you, right, who loves you, who will just stop in the middle of whatever and just start praying for you and shouting, right, a person that will support you in whatever it is that you're doing. And the beautiful thing about it is that she even had kids. And I just thought that was so dope how important, I was to her, right? That she actually would clear her schedule even if she had to bring the baby with her. Like it was all good because the truth of the matter was for her is that I was important to her and she loved me, so she showed me, right, by showing up. And for me that is huge. Like you have to know what your friends like. Acts of service, like love languages, check that out if you haven't read that. And maybe we'll start talking about that too in this love series. Maybe God will allow me to start talking about love languages as well, with acts of service, affirmations, and how important that is, right? And so I just wanted to talk about my best friend for a moment because I got to experience her for at least a good, I believe it was about a good 12 years. Um, I met her in 2000. No, I met her in 2005. 2005. Actually, not 2005, oh 04. 2004, I met her in 2004 and she passed away. Um, and so, I mean, it's been a few years now since she's been gone. But I think about her often because she was literally the closest thing that I've had to Jesus, literally being in human flesh. If I had never got to experience that again in this life, I'm just thankful that I was able to experience that in this life because it's rare. It's rare, man. It's rare to have friends that you connect with and they just get you. I didn't have to share with her too much of anything. She already knew. And it was almost like a spoken silence, right? And I can be goofy with her. I can be, I could just be me and just be comfortable in my skin. And I just think that it's something, it's something dope when you can be around another female and not feel like you're in competition with them or feel like they're judging you or they're laughing at you and not with you, right? It makes you feel safe. It makes you feel like your emotions are valid as well, right? Because she was always one of those people too that if there were any issues at all with anything, she just gonna tell me. And I think that that works for me too. And it's so funny because I find myself literally, the older I get, the more I'm just learning that, okay, Toya, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to learn how to give yourself some grace. And that goes right back into the relationship piece, right? With love, is loving myself. But I knew in that moment when I met her that I needed her in my life. And what I didn't know is that she needed me in hers. I'm just thankful because she still, she was always telling me straight up, like, look, listen, I wouldn't even be the woman that I am, right, in God, in faith, if it had not been for you coming into my life to show me the way. And I'm just like, well, girl, that was the God in me. That was not me. Okay. And so I don't take credit, and I don't take that lightly. And so that's why, when I talk about love and I talk about those things, because people think that sometimes it's impossible for us as human beings to actually have people that are for you, to actually have people who genuinely love you and care for you. But if you literally sit here and you think about just what First Corinthians um, 13:4 actually says about love, right? You can actually exemplify it yourself. And then once you begin to exemplify it yourself and begin to live that out, like, God will have you in such a way, right? God will do something in such a way, right, that He will begin to show you who's there for you. And I'm just so thankful, even to the new friends that I just started building with, right? And I can really see, like, one of my friends, well, I ain't gonna say friend, not yet, but she's like an associate. Me and her, we just met, but we already kind of click. And it's so funny because it's kind of scary a little bit, right? Because when you click with somebody, just like, dang, okay, girl, where you been? You know what I'm saying? And so it's one of those things. And so she is so dope. And at the same time, I've always had reservations with a lot of things, but when it comes to people who are on the same page as you, who want just as much as you want, right? And it's no competition again. It's one of those things where it's like, sis, let me help you, sis, let me pray for you, sis, let's be accountable for each other. And me and her, we text each other often, whether or not, if we ain't even been able to talk to each other, because sometimes we be early in the morning, but one of us is going to text each other a prayer. And that's just the way it is, right? And so I'm thankful for that. But I'm also thankful that I have one of my other friends that I met about a year ago. And she is actually a friend, right? And I don't just associate with her with just as an associate. She has actually really become one of my friends, because when you just, when you can talk to somebody literally over the phone, y'all building, and then y'all meet up, and it's just like, boom, it's just happened. And then you're like, wow, okay, God, I see this, and I can see why you've allowed me to be able to cross paths with them. This is the thing, right? And this is the reason why I'm just so thankful to God, because God has a way of bringing you people into and putting people into your life, right? Like, allowing you to cross paths with people, but then you choose according to His word, right? And according to what love is. And this is how I choose my purpose people. I'm serious, y'all, because I literally have purpose people in my life right now. um and it feels amazing to be able to have these purpose people in my life, because what's happening is that there's something that's happening on the inside of me that's stirring up something that I know that's truthful, and something that I desire, right? When the enemy tries to tell you that there are no female friends out here that will love you, that will care for you, there are no purpose people out here for you, who will really literally accept you in your crazy, who will literally accept you in your process, in your journey, in your life journey, right? No, God will literally send people to come across your path, right? And you get to choose. God allows you to cross paths with these people, but again, you choose based on what He's giving you, which is the guide, which is the tool, which is the word, right? He's given us the word. He's told us already what love is. So are these people showing that? It's just that simple. Are these people even willing to even try to make an effort, right? And to begin to even try to understand what love is. Because if they're not connected to God, I don't want you in my life. Like, I don't even need you no parts of my life. Okay. Like, I'm serious. I don't want you in my life. I don't even want you as an associate in my life. Because if you're not out here and you're not really trying your hardest to try to be the best version of yourself, not because of you, but because of God, I don't need to be connected to you. I don't want nothing from you, because what can you do for me? Right? What can you really do for me? You can't even pray for me, right? You can't help encourage me. You can't help build me up, right? Now, God can use anybody or anything, right? And I'm not saying that he can't, because he absolutely can. But what I'm saying is, in order for us to continue to build upon the friendship and the relationship that we have from that aspect, I have to be able to know that you have some fruit. Because if you don't have the evidence of the fruit, I cannot eat from your tree, because I should be able to say, "Oh, taste and see that that you're good." I should be able to taste that. I should be able to smell that. I should be able to see the fruit. I don't sit, I don't see it, I don't smell it, and I don't see it. So that's a problem. Okay. And that's why I said, like, even to relationships, and that's why I say too, like with love and everything else, we have to be intentional with that. We got to be intentional with choosing right. We got to be intentional with choosing our purpose people. Like literally, y'all, I'm thankful for the people that have come into my life for seasons, and I'm thankful for that God allowed me to be able to wake up and to be able to see exactly what I needed to see, right? But then sometimes too, I have to go back to me, and I have to point the finger at me. And I have to say, okay, well, why did you choose them in the first place? Was it because they were already a part of your life, or was it because you just literally just giving them a second chance or another opportunity to try to get it right, right? And how many times have you given them chance after chance after chance, and they still continue to show you exactly who they are, and you keep trying to make something work, you keep trying to make that friendship become alive, and you cannot resurrect the dead. Only God can do that, right? You can be a whole a whole individual, right? And this person who's broken begins to try to break you in half, but you are whole. And because God says that one is a single number, right? Also, at the same time, God also says that you are a single, I'm a single, right? And then when we become two, like two can become one. And I think that's amazing, because at the end of the day, right, this is all for his purpose. And I say that because even as a partnership, and even going into a partnership, we still have to also be mindful, right, in this partnership, that God has, right? God knows what's best for us. We have to still know that even in a partnership, even with the purpose partner, we still have to start off as a purpose people. And it's a real thing. And I think that sometimes too can be one of those things too, where, we don't want to hear it, because, we like what we like, and we loyal to people at fault because we've been around them for years. And just because I've been around you for years doesn't mean that you accept this version of me, who I am now and where I'm going, right? The version of who I am now and where I'm at in this current season in my life, right? Um, have someone that's willing to even to try to adapt, right? And I think that's a real thing, is that I'm learning to extend grace to the people that I do call friends, but I'm also learning too is that they're learning me just as much as I'm learning them. And I think that sometimes, right, if we're not growing, then we can do ourselves a true injustice, right? We're not doing ourselves any good at all by wasting anybody else's time. And I refuse to do that. I don't want to connect myself to people that, I can't help, right? I don't want to connect myself to people either that can't help me, right? With my growth. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I don't even know what else, they can do for me, right? But I don't know. Maybe their purpose is connected to my purpose, right? Because we all had the same purpose, which is to love God and to love others, right? That's what we're all supposed to be doing. But maybe my gifts can help and intensify their purpose or ignite their purpose. I don't know. Maybe I'm there to help motivate them. Maybe they're there to help motivate me. We don't know though until we open up our mouths to try to connect with people. So if you want friends, right, and you want your purpose people, you got to start opening your mouth. You got to start being intentional with going out, right? And sometimes you don't even really have to go out. You can actually look up groups. And this is how I really like, I'm telling you, like seriously, you can be intentional with going to groups and literally getting to know people, right? Everything is now, you don't even have to exchange numbers if you're not comfortable with that. You don't got to do all of that. You can literally be on social media platforms. They make it real easy for you. You can get to know people, and you get to decide again on who you want to choose to be a part of your life. And I think that's a real thing. That is a real thing. And I tell you all the time, right, to choose wisely. We have to choose wisely because our lives depend on it, man. The enemy does not want us to win. The enemy wants to come to steal, kill, and destroy. He wants our minds. He wants our purpose. He does not want us to love God. He does not want us to love others. But we have to be different. We have to do the opposite of what he thinks that we're going to do. We can't just be out here continuing to do routine, the same old routine, because guess what? That's what he knows too. He knows our habits. He knows our behaviors. He knows that we're going to choose people based on our emotions. He knows that we're going to choose people based on trauma. He knows that, right? He knows that about us. But can you imagine that you actually meet people who actually genuinely love God and they want to see you win? And not only do they want to see you win, but they also may be a part of your life to help push you even further into your destiny, into what God has called you to, right? And then that's how you even know more so that this person is actually a part of your purpose, people. Isn't that wonderful? I'm just saying, y'all. But anyways, y'all know I don't like to keep y'all on here long. 30 minutes is always good, right? And I'm always just mindful of y'all's time, of course. But I'm just thankful that God is continuing to uncture this love series, because I truly believe that the love series is really truly a blessing. Because again, it starts with God first. And those two commandments, him saying that these are the two greatest commandments, is to love him with everything that we are, to love our neighbor as we love ourselves, right? And then he wants us to know what love is, who he is, right? So then that way we can start to mimic that. And then when we mimic that, we can then begin to have our purpose people that we begin to connect with, and we can begin to decipher whether or not we want to connect with them or we don't, right? Whether or not if this is something that, is this something that God can really, allow to manifest and to actually birth something that's huge out of this, right? Is this a like-minded person? Right? Does this person going in the same direction that I'm going in? And I think this is a real thing. I think sometimes we got to have those hard conversations with ourselves. Like, are we holding on to people because we're comfortable with them? Or are we not? Um, are we just removing ourselves from situations, or are we missing out on opportunities, right? To build with people? Are we missing out on opportunities to network with people because we're nervous, we're scared, or we're scared of getting hurt? I can say that, right? I can say that because I've been hurt in friendships. I've been hurt in family ships. I've been hurt, right? And so it's hard for me sometimes to be able to trust people, but I trust God. And so because I trust God, God is now giving me a renowned faith, right? And to be able to trust him and who he is. So then that way I can then decipher and say, okay, God, I see you in them, right? I see all of that in them. And I'm not talking about potential. I'm talking about they got it now. Okay. Because I don't need someone that's going to have it, that's going to give that life to Christ. I need them to already be Christ filled. Because if you're not Christ filled, you can't really do nothing again for me. Right. There's nothing that you can do for me. Right. And I can't have that in my life, in my circle, as far as what that means, as far as the purpose that God has for us. The purpose has to be the same. If the purpose is not the same, we can't even connect. And that's a real thing for me, right? I don't have the time nor the patience for none of that. I ain't got time to be doing all of that. It's just not me, right? But anyways, I digress. I'm gonna get up off of here. I love y'all. This is what we do at the Glow Up is we grow to glow. God is so good, and I'm just so thankful for what it is that he's doing in our lives, right? But remember, I told y'all we are in this thing together, honey. This is what we do at the Glow Up is we grow to glow, honey. Listen, we're glowing. We're glowing. I'll see y'all next Friday. All right, y'all. Bye. I love y'all. Bye.